we're going to learn a class which is actually based on a text that I sent out the text from before. I hope you read the text. And the text is actually a chassidic discourse by the Rebbe. This discourse was pronounced in 1987. It's a short one. It's really a short one. Probably was less than 10 minutes of talking by the Rebbe. And it's based, of course, on previous discourses that the Rebbe spoke. The interesting part of this discourse that the Rebbe discusses specifically Bnei Noach. There are quite a few where the Rebbe talks about this. And over here, what we're going to learn is a summary of some parts of the discourse. And I'm just going to read with you a part of it, like 2-3 paragraphs. And of course, explain. That's what I'm supposed to be doing here, explaining. So what I did over here, I know it's a lot of text. Usually it's not a good idea for a presentation, but what I did over here is to summarize the whole discourse. Everything is over here, of course, in summary. First of all, the discourse is based on a verse. Okay, the verse got cut out over there. Let me just fix this in a second. Okay. The discourse is based on a verse. The verse, it's talking about the coming out of the Jewish people from Egypt. When the Jewish people went out of Egypt, they did not go directly into the land of Canaan to make it land of Israel. They traveled around the desert. The original idea was to be over there in 11 days, but there was even a shorter way of 3 days from Egypt. Imagine in the map in your mind, the north of Egypt, right by the sea, into Eretz Israel, like really quick, really fast. But God did not lead the Jewish people in that path, in that way. Why? Because the Philistines, Plishtim, who have nothing to do with Palestinians, nothing to do with them. It's a whole story class that I'm not going to do now. But the point is that the Philistines were very strong people. Plishtim, that's what they're calling in English. Plishtim, very strong people. So God did not want the Jewish people to see war right away, so they went in a different way. They ended up staying around 40 years, like 38 years in the desert. But that's a different story. Why they stood over there so much, etc. It's a different story. The point in this discourse, we're standing by when Pharaoh sent the Jewish people out, God did not lead them through the land of the Plishtim, Philistines, because they would see war, etc. So the Rebbe touches, you can see over here in my summary, 3 points. The first 2 points are not directly related to Bnei Noach. So that's why I'm not going to go a long way into the explanation, even though I'm going to explain a few things. But the first 2 points are not directly related. They also apply to Bnei Noach. It's an interesting thing, but not directly. The third point, about knowledge of God, knowing God, etc., the Rebbe talks directly about Bnei Noach. And he explains the difference in knowledge of a regular Jew, and I'm precise with the words, a regular Jew and a regular non-Jew. And I would like to say like a different point, something more that the Rebbe doesn't say, so I'm trying to be clear. The Rebbe doesn't say this, but based on different other sources, even by the Rebbe, I would definitely say that there's something more to it. But why didn't the Rebbe say something more? Okay, don't ask me. You have to ask this question to the Rebbe. But whatever, for whatever reason, the Rebbe shares this idea. So I'm going to go to the first 2 points. Descent for the purpose of greater ascent, and then joy, simcha. I'm going to do this quickly. I'm basing myself on the fact that you already read the text. And if you didn't, just go read the text, no problem, and then come back. And if you're going to do that, I strongly recommend to read the second part, the second half of the discourse first, and then go back to the beginning. Because in the second part, the Rebbe talks specifically about Bnei Noach, and then in the beginning, he completes the idea. Okay, let's go. First of all, there's a very famous and general rule in Judaism. In Hebrew is Yerida Tzorech Aliyah. Any descent you see in your life, of any kind, money, health, whatever. It's for the purpose of a greater growth. We didn't come over here just to go down. The neshama, the soul, it's a very holy thing, a very spiritual thing, and suddenly it finds itself in a very material world with all the problems that the material world has. For what? Famous question. What for? The soul was very well up there, whatever that means, up there, gazing at God and understanding God, and suddenly comes down here into the body. He only understands food and drink and, all these things. So why? For the purpose of what? And the answer is because by being down here, you can actually reach higher than the level you were before coming down here. That's the idea of a descent for a purpose ascent. Now, how do you see this in this particular verse? The Rebbe explains that there are two expressions of Pharaoh. Pharaoh in Hebrew was the king of Egypt. Very nice. And at the beginning, when you see the whole interaction between Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, and Pharaoh to let the Jewish people go, the first thing that Pharaoh says, Lo yodaiti es Hashem. I don't know who God is. You come in the name of God, and you want to take the Jewish people out of Egypt. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know who is this God. This is the first thing the Pharaoh says. But when you look a little bit deeper, that's what I wrote over here, unholy Pharaoh, so to speak, the klipa. Klipa is a word in Hebrew that literally means shell. What does that mean, a shell? The simplest and fastest explanation means the shell of a fruit, the outer part of a fruit, actually covers on the fruit. When you see a banana, you don't see the good part of the banana. You see the covering, and it's actually not so nice, not so sweet, not so good. You have to throw it away, and then you get to the banana. Okay, so that's a klipa. That's what it means, a klipa. So Pharaoh, in his expression of unholiness, he's saying, I don't know who God is. There's no such a thing as God. Get out of here. You want to take the Jewish people out? Don't bother me. Go work. However, there's an expression, completely opposite expression to that, which is Pharaoh de Kedusha, Pharaoh of holiness. What does that mean? The Zohar says the word Pharaoh, which again is the king of Egypt, I know that. However, when you read the words in Hebrew, it comes from the word pera, fei, reish, ayin, means to reveal, to open up and reveal. So Pharaoh in a holy expression, what does that mean? The revelation of God. His essence is revealed. Like complete and absolute revelation. That's what Pharaoh, in a good sense, that's what it means. So we start, so to speak, life in a very broad way. We start life in a frame of mind of Pharaoh de Klipa, unholy Pharaoh. What is God? What does it mean, God? What does it mean, Judaism? What does it mean, the Judaism's message for non-Jews? What is the purpose of my life? Like, I don't see anything. I don't understand anything. I don't feel anything. I see all these rabbis talking about such special things and Kabbalah. Very nice. I don't feel it. I'm sorry. I see rabbis saying you should pray with a lot of heart. I don't do that. I'm sorry. I just repeat the words. And let's suppose God is hearing. Okay, I don't know. But let's suppose that's how we start. And everybody starts at the same place. Everybody, I mean Jews and non-Jews. Everybody starts in the same way, in the same place. However, throughout life, we're supposed to be changing, so to speak, ourselves, working in ourselves to change from Pharaoh de Klipa, from an unholy Pharaoh that says, I don't know who God is, into a Pharaoh de Kedusha, into holiness, into being able to at least grasp and understand a little bit of Father, of God being revealed. Now, it's not easy, of course, and what the main tool, so to speak, to accomplish this is a descent for the purpose of a greater ascent. It's difficult. You have to go down in Egypt, and you have to do hard work, and okay, all the story of the Jewish people in Egypt, etc. And the Rebbe says, all of this work, since God is demanding this from us, has to be done with joy, with simcha. And then the Rebbe connects to the second part of the discourse. What is this simcha? What is the joy? And now we're going to understand a little bit deeper what the Philistines means. And again, this has nothing to do with Palestine and Hamas. No, that's garbage. We're talking about a level in the world, whatever. I don't want to expand on this. Okay, what's the Philistines? Chassidic thought explains that Plishtim, the word Plishtim, which is a Hebrew word for Philistines, comes from the word mefulash, like mavoy mefulash. I left it in Hebrew on purpose to see the connection between Philistines and mefulash. It's basically the same word, because in Hebrew each word has a source of a root of 2, 3 letters, whatever. It's the same root, Philistines, and that means Plishtim and mefulash. It's the same root. And what does it mean, mefulash? Open. But not just open from both sides. Like when you go from one side and you go out on the other side, like a passage, that's what it means, mefulash. Mavo is like a passage that is open, mefulash, on both sides. That's what Plishtim mean. What does that mean? It means that when a person, specifically speaking about joy, pleasure, etc., the person starts engaging in joy, in pleasure, be careful. Because the joy and the pleasure might lead to a not good joy and pleasure. Like mockery, frivolity, joking, just like that, and just having pleasures out of material things. The power of pleasure within a person is very powerful, and it's very important. If a person doesn't have pleasure on anything, we have problems, big problems that might lead to terrible situations, suicide, etc. So pleasure is a good thing to have. The question is, what do you have pleasure on? Do you have pleasure on food? Do you have pleasure on drinks? Do you have pleasure on drugs? Do you have pleasure on God? Oh, different types of pleasures. And I'm not saying this is good, this is bad, whatever. I leave this to anybody's understanding. What I'm trying to say is that you have to focus your capacity of pleasure. Don't destroy your capacity of pleasure. No way. But focus it towards God, towards Torah, towards doing good to somebody else, towards bringing righteousness into the world, whatever, morality and everything else. Okay, but it's the same quality, capacity, power of pleasure that we have inside of us, just focused on something else. But be careful, because when you start engaging yourself in pleasure and in joy, etc., it might lead to the other side. That's why it's a passage that is open on both sides. Be careful. You might end up just engaging yourself in your material and bodily pleasures, and you completely forgot about God. Completely. But it's pleasure, yeah. One pleasure leads to another one, and who knows where you can end. So the Rebbe explains briefly in this discourse. Again, I'm basing myself on that you already read this. So the Rebbe explains basically that pleasure, again, it's a very important thing. It's an infinite thing because you can go beyond what you understand. Usually, pleasure, it's derived from something we understand that is good for us. That's why we go and engage on that. Or if we understand that this is bad for us, we just run away. As strong as we feel this is bad, the furthest we're going to run away from this thing because we know this is bad for us, etc. So understanding, intellect, directly relates to emotions and also to pleasure. Because we search for the pleasures that we know, intellect, that are good for us. Okay. Now, with this idea of the connection between joy that can be infinite in a good way, in a bad way, I'm not going to the details now. With this idea, we can understand now a little bit better the continuation of the phrase in the Torah, the verse in the Torah, when Pharaoh sent the people out. Well, the Torah says, Bnei Noach derech eretz Plishtim. And God did not guide the Jewish people through the land of Plishtim. Why not? It was the shortest way. So the Rebbe explains, Plishtim is a problem. If as soon as you went out of Egypt, as soon as you start your avoida, your work of refinement, etc., you engage in pleasure, Plishtim, mefulash, open, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous because it might lead to the other side, quickly, very fast. So you better go in a different way, in a different type of avoida. Okay. The Rebbe connects this. We're standing in this, where's my mouse? In this particular part of the summary. The Rebbe explains that true pleasure and true joy on God, we're only going to really feel it in the coming of Mashiach. And the coming of Mashiach is directly related, and that's why the Rebbe quotes the Rambam, and I wrote it down. The Rambam says at the end of his book, Mishneh Torah, there will be peace in the days of Mashiach, in the simple sense, no war, no jealousy, no rivalry, while the entire world will be engaged in knowing God. And that's why the Rebbe starts talking about non-Jews, because it says the entire world. What does it mean, the entire world? All the Jews of the entire world? No. It means all the human beings of the entire world, there will be knowledge of God. And that's where the Rebbe enters, so to speak, the whole world of Bnei Noach in this particular discourse that we're learning right now. And the Rebbe explains, I just wrote a very short summary of that part, but my intention is to read at least a few parts of it quickly. And the Rebbe explains, basically there are two types of knowledge. And I want to add, as I mentioned in the introduction, I want to add one more step. That it's not that I made this up. It's brought down. It's actually based on a verse, and it's brought down in many places in Chassidus. But the idea is like this. First of all, what's the normal, regular, and I stress this word, capacity of knowledge of God that a normal and regular Jew has? It's something called, in Kabbalah, in Chassidus, soivev kol almin. What does that mean, soivev kol almin? How God transcends the world. What does that mean? In simple words, there are basically two expressions of God. Expression number one is how God fills the world in a way that each centimeter, each inch, whatever, of the world receives the amount of godliness that needs to exist and to function properly. An ant receives the amount of godliness that needs to function like an ant. A dog receives the amount of godliness and liveliness and livelihood, whatever, that needs to live like a dog. A human being receives the amount, and so on. Everybody. Again, the life that God injects, so to speak, in the creation is according to the need of that particular creature, whatever the creature is. That's called memale kol almin, the second part, how God fills the world. So Soivev kol almin, how God transcends the world, means God is not limited to his own creation. That, in other words, God can do so many things. He's not just involved with us, also, but it's not just involved with us. In other words, we don't limit God. He knows to do other things. He knows how to do other things that we don't even think about, and we can't even think about and imagine. But He's God. He's not limited to us, neither to our understanding. Rather, He is infinite. But this quality of infinity is not revealed in the creation. It's something you have to find. You have to think about. It's not so easy. So, again, regular Jew in a regular situation has, so to speak, access to understanding quickly that there's something beyond. That means Soivev kol almin. And the Rebbe explains, a regular non-Jew, no, in a regular situation, I stress these words, doesn't have access to this. No, he just has access to how God fills the world. He's more related to material things. He's more related. That doesn't mean that he doesn't believe in God. Because even if you see the material world, you can quickly come to the conclusion that there is a God. And He creates everything. Avraham Avinu came to that conclusion without being a Jew. So that doesn't mean that nobody can reach that. Definitely anybody can reach that, Jew and non-Jew. But it's a knowledge related directly to the creation. Not to the way God transcends the creation, rather the other way around. The way God fills the creation, through understanding that, you reach to the conclusion that there is a God. And furthermore, you could reach the rational conclusion that this God is one. And this is Avraham Avinu, this is what he did. And our sages, the Midrashim, etc., talk about this. How God discovered that there was the light of the moon and the light of the sun and then the stars, whatever. He started thinking and he came to the conclusion there's one God. It's not the moon, it's not the stars, it's not the sun, and so on. Okay. But that's all memale kol almin. This is what the Rebbe says, and we're going to read it in a few minutes. I would like to add something more. There's a classical saying, and it's not actually, it's a verse, it's a Mishlei. Lehovin davar mitoch davar. That's the way you say in Hebrew. To understand a thing from within a thing. I know it's a repetition, but that's the way the Hebrew text goes. Lehavin davar mitoch davar. It's the same word. Davar means the thing. Means the thing. To understand a thing from within a thing. What does that mean? Regular, simple translation. When you see a contract, laws and lawyers and all these things, you have to really know how to read, because there are hidden meanings, the words and the wording and the phrases, and suddenly you owe them $1 million. Hey, I never signed this. Yeah, you should read properly, and you will see it says under the lines, within the lines, that you owe $1 million. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, that's your problem. That's the terms and conditions. Oh, wait. I don't want these terms and conditions. You should have read before. I read. You should have read better. That's what it means, lehavin davar mitoch davar. But in Hasidus, it explains a very similar but deeper concept. What's the thing that is being understood from within a thing? In order to understand that, first of all, we have to understand what is within a thing. There is something within something else. And this something, we understand it by understanding the something else. I know I'm repeating too many times the same words. And I don't have all the words for these ideas. And to the point that Shlomo Melech, King Solomon, which is the author of Mishlei, also didn't have other words. He said, lehavin davar mitoch davar. I'm sorry, I'm just using his words. And I'm not smarter than him. Forget it. So the idea is like this. As I explained before, a person, by looking at the world and understanding the world and really contemplating the world and meditating on the world, and there's a whole book, Choives Alevovis, The Duties of the Heart. There's a part in this book, actually 2 parts, that are very interesting. 3 parts. The whole book is interesting, but whatever. The first part, the first shard, he divides it in portals. The first portal is talking about the unity of God. Very interesting. He brings rational ideas where you can see that God is one. And he also talks about the existence of God. Rational ideas, why you have to come to the conclusion that there is a God over there. And then he touches the idea of it's one God. Okay, that's the first part. Second part talks about looking at the world, contemplating, reflecting on the world in order to understand God. What does that mean? Simple. Davar mitoch davar. One thing from within a thing. You open your eyes, see the world, and you come to the conclusion that there's a God. Very nice. So we understand from within the world, thing, something else, God. Very nice. Let's go a step further. I already believe in God, I understood God, whatever. Let's suppose it. Okay, I'm fine. What's the next step? The next step is, okay, there's as I explained before, memale kol almin. That's how God, the idea of how God fills the world. Very nice. That's the thing we have, and we have to work on to understand something that is inside this thing. In other words, by understanding and by contemplating memale kol almin, how God fills the world, we can reach the point of sovev kol almin, how God transcends the world. If we really meditate, contemplate, think, etc., about this idea of God giving life to the whole world, if you just stop there, that's it. God gives life to the world. It's okay. It's good. It's better than nothing. But you know what? It's limited. Why? Because God is giving life to this world, which has a limitation of definition, this world and not something else, whatever that might be. I don't know. As I explained before, to the ant, he gives the amount of chayus, of livelihood that the ant needs. To the dog, to the human being, to the stars, to the moon. But all of this, it's a limited creation. Might be huge. The size of the universe. Wow, amazing. For God, it's like nothing. Really, so simple. So nothing. Not that it's not important. I mean, it's so simple to do. It's like you ask me, we're going to contract the rabbi, we're going to hide the rabbi, and we're going to pay him $1,000 just to say hello. So the rabbi comes and says, hello. That's it. Everybody claps their hands. It was quite simple, Anybody can say hello. It's not so difficult. I don't know why you're praising me because I said hello. Okay, he knows English. He said hello. Okay, I know other words also. So if we praise God because he's the creator of the world, wow, amazing. He created all the stones, all the minerals, and all the plants, and all the animals, and all the human beings, and he knows what the human beings think. And you know what? He also created the solar system, and he also created the sun, and the stars, and the moon, and very nice. You know what? That's like saying hello. So simple. And you're praising God because he created the whole world? Is that really a praise? I don't know. So from understanding the limitation that Memale Kol Almin has, how God fills the world, we definitely come to the conclusion that there must be something else. There must be something more, something higher than this. Because otherwise we're limiting God just to deal and engage with this world, which is not so nice, or at least doesn't look so nice. Whatever. That's how you come from davar, from looking at the world. There's a toich davar. There's something more to it. That's soivev kol almin. That's how God actually transcends the world, more than just feeling the world, and both things at the same time. What I want to say with this is, when we read, as we're going to do in a minute, in the text, and this is just one text, the Rebbe and the other Rebbe talking about how Bnei Noach can access Memale Kol Almin, how God fills the world. That's and I repeat this, the regular understanding. You could stop there, and it's better than nothing, of course, because we know, and we discussed it so many times, like moral and ethics have to be based on God, on a higher being. It's all okay, it's all good, and it's better than nothing. But it doesn't stop there. There's more. What more? Infinity. That's the more. Within a finite world, within a defined and concrete world, there's a spark of infinity over there that is closer, so to speak, to the essence of God. The essence of God is both things at the same time, which is a paradox. I know that. And this is not something I'm saying. This is something that Rebbe Meir Ibn Gabbai, who is the author of many books, but one of the most famous books is called Avodas HaKodesh. He lived in Eretz Israel, in the land of Israel, around 1500s. And he wrote, again, many things. Avodas HaKodesh, the holy work, so to speak. It's a book of Kabbalah. And he writes over there that just as God has power in definition in concrete world, finitude, God has power in infinity, in a non-defined world. Because if you're going to say that he has one power and not the other one, you're taking something out of God. You're making God not to be complete. He has this power, he doesn't have this other power. He has all the powers, concrete and not concrete at the same time. That's what God means. It's a paradox. Yeah, but he's God. He's not limited by what we understand. It's a paradox. For him, it's not. He's God. That's the definition of God. Okay. And the Rebbe ends with the idea that you can find God in every single place in the world, and non-Jews can also find God and understand God in every single place in the world, in every single situation in the world. Why? Because the whole world is the truth of God. And this is what the Rambam says, and the Rebbe is quoting back and forth the Rambam. Having said all of this, let's go to the text a little bit. I think it's very interesting to see it inside. I'm going to read, but I'm going to jump a few things to make it a little bit faster. Okay. The explanation, of course, you see, there's a whole discourse before the explanation, which is the first part of the discourse, talking about Plishtim, what that means, and the joy, and the infinite joy, etc., and descent for ascent. Okay, we explain this. The explanation of this matter in more detail can be understood based on what the Rambam writes. What does the Rambam write over here? That the sages and the prophet did not long for the days of Mashiach so they can be, they can have a lot of food and a lot of girls. And no. That's not what we're looking for. No. We want to be free to engage in Torah and its wisdom. That's all we want. Just learn. Let me learn Torah. Let me understand God. That's all I want. Don't bother me. In the future, there will be no hunger, no war, no jealousy, no competition. Goodness will be abundant. The Rebbe is quoting the whole Rambam. And it ends up saying like this. The Jewish people will be great sages, knowing hidden matters, and will grasp the knowledge of their Creator to the fullest extent possible by human beings. As it's written, for the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of God. Everything. Okay, let's continue. Just a second, over here. We could say, says the Rebbe, from there can be understood the ultimate perfection of peace will exist in the future. What will be peace in the simple sense? No war, no jealousy, no rivalry. Because, again, this is the Rambam, the entire world will be engaged in the knowledge of God. And the Rebbe says clearly, this includes all of humanity, not just Jews. However, the knowledge attained by all nations will be on the level of Memalek Olalmin, how God fills the world. But the Jewish people will know hidden matters. You see, they have in davar mitech davar, to understand one thing from within another thing. Something is hidden, you don't see it clearly, but you have to know how to read small letter in the contract, so to speak. That's the Jewish people, but that doesn't mean that a non-Jew has no access to that. That's what I wanted to add into the Rebbe's words. And the non-Jews will attain the knowledge of their Creator, etc. Okay, so the Rebbe continues. And though this deeper knowledge, there will be peace, this deeper knowledge, there will be peace, in the ultimate and most complete sense, etc. Okay, and everybody, famous quote from Zephaniah, will serve God all together, shoulder by shoulder. Okay, very good. Continues the Rebbe. Because up to now, what he just said, if you call it the Rambam, it's not really saying anything new. And this idea of Memalek Olam and Sovek Olam is brought down in so many other chassidic discourses. It's a famous idea within Hasidus. Non-Jews generally, regularly, I stress, know Memalek Olam and Jews know Sovek Olam. Very nice. I hope, this is just a humorous note, that more Jews would at least engage in trying to understand that there's a God. Don't talk to me about Memalek Olam and Sovek Olam. Don't think all the Jews are like great tzaddikim, great righteous, whatever. Okay. So we could say that the explanation of this according to the precise wording of the Rambam. Why does the Rambam say to know God? Why doesn't he say to feel God, to understand God, to know? And the word in Hebrew is das. Lo das is Hashem. This is the text of the Rambam. And the Rebbe wants to stress and explain what's this word over here. Specifically the word das, knowledge. Why knowledge for Jews and non-Jews? The concept of das is explained in Tanya. What does it mean, das? Deep connection and attachment. I'm not going to explain all the powers of the soul. No, forget it. It's not for now. But the point is that there's one specific intellectual power of connecting deeply to an idea. Making this idea yours, like this project is mine, and I will go to the end of the world to accomplish it. That means das. In other words, a different idea, but basically the same idea. When you constantly think, this is the idea of attachment, constantly think about something without removing your mind from it. That's what das means. Because we have many ideas in the mind, constantly flowing. Okay, but some of them, just a few of them, we actually focus on them and we really get attached to those ideas, and those are the ideas that we live by. Because again, many ideas come to your mind all the time, but you don't really live by those ideas. That's because you have das on those ideas. These are the ones that I choose to actually make mine. Okay. In the words of the Rebbe, not the Tanya, the person binds his mind with a strong and powerful bond, firmly plants his, the words of the Tanya, firmly plants his thoughts, etc., really binding to this idea. Therefore, das serves as a foundation for emotional attributes. Okay, let's move on. And it follows that in the future, when Mashiach comes, there will be a complete state of ladas as Hashem. This is the word of the Rambam. This will lead to the perfect fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. because we're going to really attach ourselves to Hashem and understanding and everything. Similarly, this will result in the complete fulfillment of 7 noahide laws, says the Rebbe, by all the humanity. Because people are going to be so attached to God, to understanding Him, to feeling Him, etc., that will automatically cause the proper behavior. Therefore, at that time, there will be peace in its ultimate perfection. Because if people will understand, no killing, no stealing, etc., automatically peace. Okay, to understand how it's possible to say that all humanity will have knowledge of Hashem, this is not such a simple phrase. That's why the Rebbe stresses, I need to explain this a little bit better. It's not so easy to say such a phrase, such a thing. Not all the rabbis agreed to this. So the Rebbe feels the need to explain this. I'm saying that everybody's going to understand God. What do you mean everybody? Just Jews. What? No Jews? Who cares? So he says, wait a second. It's not so simple. From the Rambam sounds that non-Jews will also understand God. Have das. So the Rebbe wants to explain this. How comes? And the Rebbe first of all quotes the Rambam, his words. The foundation, at the beginning of the book, right? Until now we were learning the end of the book. Now he goes back right to the beginning. The foundation of all foundation, the pillar of our wisdom is to know, I stress this word, to know that there's a first existence, God. And He brings all existence into being. And all beings, whether in heavens, on earth, whatever, they exist from the highest celestial, they only exist, exist only from the truth of God. There is nothing in the world that does not have inside of it, whatever it might be, a stone, a plant, an animal, a human being, everything has a part, so to speak, and I just use this word quote unquote. I'm not talking about parts like my eyes and my lungs. No. I'm talking about in a more general way. Everything has a spark of God. Everything. Now, the Rambam later, says the Rebbe, elaborates on this idea, explaining in more detail that it applies to all celestial spheres below them, etc., fire, water, whatever. Everything that exists only exists, and these are the words of the Rambam, because of the truth of his existence. Now see, the conclusion the word the Rebbe takes is so simple and so powerful at the same time. Based on this, that everything exists because of the truth of God, we can understand how it is possible for the entire world, and the Rebbe stresses these words and means Jews and non-Jews, to attain knowledge of Hashem. Everything. Why? Since everything exists only from the truth of His existence, the true essence of all existence is the truth of His being. Therefore, it is possible for everyone to attain the knowledge of Hashem. In other words, I'm looking at a computer right now, and I'm talking, giving a class. Very nice. This computer has the truth of God inside of it. That's why it exists. Okay, you might say, wait a second, there was a group of engineers that gathered and started drawing and thinking and blah, blah, blah. And there's a factory that actually got this computer, and I went to a place and I bought it, etc. What do you mean God? No God. Engineers. Yeah, right. But the materials, no engineers. The materials are godly materials. The engineers put together those materials, making a computer. Great. I wouldn't be able to do it. Thank you so much. I work with it and I enjoy it. Very nice. But you created the combination of specific materials in order to work in a specific way. A computer, very good. But the materials didn't create. God creates. So the truth of God is inside anything in the world. So by just looking at anything in the world, what are you looking at? God. That's what you're looking at. You have to think about it. It's not so easy. Okay, that's your work. The work is not done. You have to do it. But by looking at anything, you can reach God. And then the Rebbe finishes just, so to speak, to close the Maimer. May it be Hashem's will that this will be fulfilled soon, for us soon. Mashiach will come soon, and therefore we're going to have knowledge of God soon, etc. And Hashem will be one, and His name will be one. It just finishes with a few verses. And this should happen with the third Beis Hamikdash, speedily nowadays, etc. Now, let's go back a little bit to the previous points. Again, the first 2 points I did not read. Go and read. I hope you know how to read. And the third point, the Rebbe said clearly, okay, Jews, non-Jews, what I want to say is, that's okay, that's true, the Rebbe said this, but there's one step more. The one step more is, don't stop searching. Don't stop and say, but the rabbis say I can only access the world, so I'm just going to drink a lot of vodka because that's part of the world and I'm going to be happy. No. There's more to it. There's something more beyond the drink, so to speak, which is God. And we have to learn to search for Him in every single part of the world and never settle. Never say, okay, that's it. This is how far I can reach. No. There's no limit to it. Why? Again, lehavin davar mitoch davar. Because you can always, from within one thing, reach another thing. Reach something more. Reach something more.